Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I'm a little behind schedule today. Had a 4-alarm fire here this morning. I ran out of coffee. I was reduced to get it. I had some instant coffee in the cabinet in reserve, just in case I had an emergency. And I just woke up this morning. I woke up early. Been waking up early lately. Woke up early, and I was able to. You got to really man up to drink instant coffee, and I did this morning. There's a 92% chance of rate cuts in September. Extremely bullish for markets. That is not going to be a bad thing. You can see everything forming. I love these market pullbacks with the things that are in front of us, because I hadn't scooped any up yet. But if this thing dips below $3, it seems like we keep finding these new plateaus, $2 and then $3, and then every once in a while it'll dip below those plateaus, and that's when I scoop. All right, John Deaton says Scott, he's talking about yesterday when the Wolf of Wall Street, Scott, what's his name? Scott Melker. Scott Melker, he said, John Deaton says, Scott Melker agreed to come to XRP Las Vegas, and John retweets it, says, Scott's a friend, I'll be there with him. Now if we can get Gary Cardone there, Scott, Gary, and I can play that terrible blackjack game we played during the Bitcoin conference. That will be interesting to see Scott Melker there. Then we've got this. This is Stephen McClurg, who's Canary. He's the one that filed for an XRP ETF, and he's talking here. So we get interest rates, and then we get ETFs at about the same time.
The CEO
as the Clarity Act as well.
Of the investment firm Canary Capital. And so I'm wondering, you have all these applications now with the SEC for spot crypto ETFs tied to altcoins, including XRP and Litecoin. So I know you can't talk about these specific filings, but what do you think happens with those filings in general, with those spot crypto ETFs tied to altcoins?
Well, the SEC has been working very closely with the exchanges, NASDAQ, CBOE, New York Stock Exchange, over the last 6 months to create a generic listing standard. And that got published in the last week. So what the generic listing standard will do is give at least some standards so that you don't have to go through an entire process like we did with Bitcoin, with other cryptocurrencies. That generic listing standard largely looks at futures. And does this token have a futures market in the US or not? And that's one of the qualifications. There's several other qualifications that also apply to other commodities. But if you look at what's proposed and what's public, it's still in the 21-day comment period. But once that's over, we do expect to see a lot of altcoins launching probably in September, October.
September, October, Clarity Act, interest rates, ETFs. That's why I'll be, when I have money sitting on the sideline, I will be accumulating. I'll dip below $3. I dare you, XRP. Here's the SEC chairman.
So a couple of weeks ago, the administration issued the President's Working Group's report on digital assets in the United States, and there were clear directions to the SEC. We're part of the PWG, the President's Working Group, and clear recommendations for us to go forward and help make what the President has announced, his intention to make America the crypto capital of the world and have the world run on American technology. So we're mobilizing at the SEC all our different divisions and offices to focus on making that announcement become reality. So that's with our corporation finance division, investment management, and others. We're focusing on what we can do to make the regulations of the SEC encompass the crypto assets and also make it so that people can have some clarity going forward. We're working with Congress. Obviously, the Genius Act was enacted here a few weeks ago with a big announcement at the White House by the president himself, and as he signed it. So that I thought was a very good step forward. And now there are other bills in Congress that are being considered, and when they return from their recess, I look forward to much more forward progress.
All right, look at this update on who's coming to Ripple Swell 2025. Let me look at this is in November 4th through 5th in New York, and they have a Ripple AI advisor now over here. I haven't even tried that. Look who's coming. We've already covered some of these. There was a couple of additions down here. Let me see. I think there was some new people. This one's new, I think. Summer Mersinger from the Blockchain Association. And then I can't remember if this one was here before. I think she was. That might be it for the new additions. But you got some power hitters coming there. Okay, this is so funny. Lynette Zhang is trying to school one of these Bitcoin children on Bitcoin, and it is a classic. Listen up.
He created this thing that's almost, in some sense, it's considered to be like a freedom virus, or a vortex of incentives, where people willingly interacted with this thing. There wasn't a pre-mine, there wasn't a group of individuals like Brad Garlinghouse and promoting their XRP. It was a protocol created by an anonymous individual that put it in a cyberspace. He said it existed, and then other people interacted with it. They started to run the hashing algorithm. They started to run the nodes.
You can tell by the look on her face, she's like, what a load of bull.
And as a result, they were the recipients of newly minted coins. So in some sense, this is a free and open, or quite literally a free and open protocol that is paying people in its token to interact with it. And if it's unstoppable, then it is a game theoretic shelling point. If it's finite in supply, it cannot be debased, cannot be seized, cannot be corrupted, then that means it's probable and logical to think that the world reorganizes itself financially around Bitcoin as the base layer money. You were concerned that Bitcoin is a Trojan horse. Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about that. Are you referring to the CIA and the NSA creating Bitcoin?
I am concerned about
pulling the public.
Well,
okay. What are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so my thoughts on this is what they need for any new system is adoption. And the way that they get adoption is slowly at first and then faster and faster. So, I don't know exactly when, you came into Bitcoin. 2017, okay. So I'd seen the ups and downs of it because I'd been paying attention to it for so long. And so they let it run and people go, woohoo, more people jump on the bandwagon, right? So it isn't really, I'm not really singling out Bitcoin, but it was the first one. And it's the one that was used to get adoption of the new digital age. And look at all the coins. I mean, let me tell you, do you know how much money I could have made? And the people, and Jacqueline is here, she's the president of my company, she's been with me forever. And the people that would call and say, oh, Lynette, just here's this coin and come and sit on our board and come in. And I'm like, have you listened to any of my work? Right? I mean, I couldn't in good faith do something like that. But what I'm talking about is as a Trojan horse, it was used in allowing it to run without any limitations is getting people to adopt, it's not just Bitcoin, but adopt the whole cryptocurrency ecosystem.
So that they don't go and buy gold and don't flood into gold while the central banks accumulate. This is obvious, folks. Satoshi was not, I repeat, Satoshi was not some individual libertarian. That's a bunch of bull. This has been a complete distraction. That's what it is. This is not. This is Greg Kidd, one of the first 10 people at Ripple.
No, well, this is why I love the idea of a basket of assets, right? And I do mean like gold, oil, and digital assets alike. I mean, it stands to reason that that's the way you would want to go. I had a conversation a long time ago, back in 2019, with David Schwartz, where I was talking with him about, having reserves of all kinds of different assets from all over this sector of, whether it's commodities or alike, really stabilize it. If you could underpin the dollar with all of those things, instead of just an agreement to print more or just a petrodollar agreement, then you really would have the confidence of a dollar for the next 150 years. What say you?
I agree.
Oh, that wasn't very tough.
But I mean, you really said it well. I mean, to me, it's just a risk to not take that risk. And,
right.
And sometimes the biggest risk you take is not taking a risk at all. I said it in my election.
And then for more adult talk, Brad Combs had put these two clips out, and I know people have seen some of them before, but this is big picture stuff, folks. This is the stuff that's really going on while all these clowns are distracted by Bitcoin.
This is the one to do it.
Now, they're floating a lot of ideas, Chris, about how to acquire some of these digital assets. Are you hearing anything about the different suggestions on that? And there's obviously, I've talked about this. I know other people have floated the idea. Is it out of the realm of possibility to consider that there would be a new bond issuance of digital assets in the future? Not next Tuesday, but in the future.
Oh, I think it's more than a possibility. Yeah. I think you're going to see it at multiple levels. I think you're going to see it at the corporate level. I think you'll see it at municipal levels. And I think ultimately you'll see it at the national level. And I also think that one of the things that really bothered this president about the private administration, government sees crypto routinely as part of law enforcement. In fact, they're not even able to currently quantify all the crypto that is held by government, because some of it is at the state and municipal level from routine, police stops. And the prior administration would at least, what was at the federal level, they would sell off routinely. And it annoys this president they did, though, because that they do that, because had they held on to it, we might be able to pay down some of the national debt. So he's committed to holding on to the seized crypto. And that's something that doesn't need congressional authorization. They can just do that as a routine matter. And it's across the board in terms of different crypto. Beyond that, they're also thinking about how do we create something that's more like a reserve? The difference between a stockpile you just collect. A reserve is something that you actually actively utilize. So our strategic petroleum reserve is something that is not just used. You may think it's only used if we have a shortage of oil, we release some oil. No, it's actually used strategically and for monetary policy purposes, because the dollar is tied to the...
You mean the same way that David Schwartz said XRP escrow is a strategic weapon? Yeah, similar to that.
Global price of oil. If our economic adversaries, like OPEC, decide to reduce production to drive up the price, we can sell from the reserve to counter that and reduce the price, and therefore control the exchange rate for the dollars. So we use the strategic reserve. Well, when you've got the BRICS countries talking about creating a rival currency to the dollar and perhaps pegging it to physical commodities like gold or digital commodities, then it makes sense for us to actually reserve that to do the same thing we do with strategic petroleum. So that's very much, again, an earlier panel talked about these coming rivals to the dollar. There's no question that there is desire amongst many countries, the BRICS countries and others, to come up with a rival, but that is why the United States is stockpiling gold. That is why the United States is now stockpiling crypto, because they're aware of those threats and they are committed to preserving the dollar. Now, we've got to get Congress on that same track. The White House is doing their job to cut spending. We've got to get Congress to do it. And if any indication, the recent debates over the budget bill and the tax bill are not encouraging about Congress's ability to live off the credit card.
And what's interesting is when you talk about the oil comparison here, in the creation of this digital asset stockpile, they can sell the assets out of there. And I think some people have mistakenly looked at that as a deficiency to that. But what I saw is that is just like oil. They can sell oil. So if they acquire these digital assets and over time they can sell them, they could price control these assets in question just as they do oil.
And you know, countries have been doing this since the dawn of time. Right. We know that ancient Egypt actually stockpiled wheat. We know that China today stockpiles everything from pork and soybeans to rebar to copper to earth metals. And so it absolutely makes sense. As the world's largest economy, we absolutely need to be looking at the world's current commodities and its future digital commodities and thinking about how we have some impact on the global price.
And by the way, that is Chris Giancarlo, the ex-head of the CFTC, the guy that gave Bitcoin futures. Brad Combs says United States government will issue digital asset bonds for assets like Bitcoin, XRP, ADA, Sol, and others. I agree. Now, I'm going to talk about something in the group that I will not talk about out here, would not talk about out here. It's one of the theories I've always had. I pretty much believe this theory. I'll call it the fake enemy theory. You're going to want to see this. I'll give you my thoughts on it. Go to daixrp.com. That's the Patreon. If you'd rather go through YouTube, click the join button below any of these YouTube videos, or you can click on the subscribe button through X. You can join through there as well. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family. Let's go talk about the fake enemy theory. Here we go.